and achievements of our school system. At the same time, I'm also aware of the suggestions and concerns that you as parents, community members, and teachers and staff have expressed. I'm eager and open to listen and learn new perspectives, as well as working together to create solutions to issues. I was born in Helena, Montana, and have been raised in beautiful Broadwater County my entire life. I received a K-12 education here at Townsend School District, and I have very strong connections to the school and the community. I enjoy the relationship that I developed in the education I received. I currently work as assistant treasurer of Broadwater County and many years of administrative and office experience, as well as customer service. My career and experience in budgeting and balancing will add and dissecting the fiscal portion of the school administration regarding revenue and responsible expenditures. In my previous and current career role, I have formed my trusting relationships built on positive, effective communication, which is something I pride myself on. As a school member elected by you, I will encourage conversation and input from all parties involved before coming to a decision. My ability to work well in a team environment has been a strength of mine, and I feel it will be beneficial to this position. When working towards common goals and grounds, I enjoy utilizing my skills to problem solve and feel this trait will enable me to become an active participant and member of the school board. I believe the vision of the school board is to establish the goals of the school district, as well as provide leadership to help ensure that overall success of students, as well as the teacher, staff, and administration. I would be honored to have your vote and look forward to building solid and trusted relationships with students, parents, the school staff, and the community. My number one priority would be make every decision based on fact. If you'd like to reach me or share my vision for Townsend School District, please email me, and if you'd like that, I will give you that information. I look forward to serving you as the newest member of the Townsend School Board of Trustees. Okay, with that said, my first question is, what is your background leads you to believe that you would be an effective school board member? Kevin, you're first.
Would you like me to start? My background, basically construction and engineering, and I think as far as the facilities part lends itself well to that. I have a degree in engineering, so I got familiar with that end of education. Raised 4 kids here who went through school here and received a good education through Townsend, and have gone on. They've all gone on to do well, and I've been on the board for 15 years, and that's probably that breadth of experience to go with that.
Could you have the candidates state their name?
Oh, yes, please do, sir.
Oh, my name is Kevin McDonald.
Okay. Yeah. And Andrea Rice, same question.
Yeah. Well, my name is Andrea Rice. I actually was homeschooled for the entire 12 years of my education, and then I graduated from Carroll with a nursing degree, and I have been a nurse at St. Peter's for 18 years. However, I discovered about myself that I am not a teacher, as in I don't want to teach my children, and I want to leave that to the people who teach. I learned on Teachers Day and Nurses Day were the same day every year, and I said, shout out to teachers, because I would rather be covered in other people's bodily fluids than teach my children. But that being said, I understand that it takes so much dedication to become a teacher, and it also takes a lot of support to do it well. And I know that because I saw my mom do a very good job, but I also saw people who didn't do a very good job. And I have been in a position in watching my nephew who graduated last year, my niece who's in high school, but then my 2 boys who have started here from kindergarten and are now in 6th and 7th grade. And I have had such a wonderful experience with the Townsend schools all through elementary and through middle school thus far, that really, I really want to be here to help and support, because as a nurse, that's also important that we get that same support in my profession. And oftentimes you see a very us versus them mentality when it comes to board members or leadership versus student or nurses or teachers. And I don't like that. So that's coming from my background in healthcare. I feel like that's a different perspective I can give in being on the board here.
Evening, everybody. Jason Kool, it's Kool. Appreciate everybody's willingness to come out and spend your evening with us, as well as Kevin and Tim for your guys' experience and expertise and the place you've left the school as it is today. So I'm originally a transplant. I'm originally from Iowa. I grew up there, went to K-12 to Iowa, got a fish and wildlife biology degree, and that took me down the path of working for state government. So I currently work for the state of Montana, have for 6 years, married a gal who's a native Montanan from the Gallatin Valley originally, but we moved back here 6 years ago. My two boys are also here in school, and the things that I feel like I can provide, there's just some clarity to roles and leadership. You see that with state government as far as being a trust manager. We are a trust manager on behalf of the legislature, which is the trustee. In this role, it's a little bit different, but it's also the experience of working with a variety of programs across the state, a variety of people. So I directly oversee the Hunter Access Program in the state. It's about a $10 million budget, about 40 some FTE, and we work across the state with over 1,200 landowners and just a variety of different situations and backgrounds, but then also the legislative piece. There's a whole state government aspect to my job of that I feel like I can bring here, which is taking the feedback from the public, the invested community members, the parents, the teachers, the different parties, the different entities, bring them together to solve a collective issue or a problem or whatever. That's kind of been my experience. It's just assisting staff across the state to be able to do that. In my opinion, leadership is really where I can strive and where I can help bring some tangible assets to this community and to this school. And I think that's, leadership for me is not about being in charge. It's not about a title. It's about taking care of those in your charge, right? So much to what Andrea and others have said, we all have a similar common goal of trying to leave this place a better place than when we found it. At the same time, there's a lot of great things that have happened. There's a lot of great things that are currently going on. We should keep that too. But there's also, I think, some changes that can happen, and I'm open to discussing those throughout. But, again, it's taking that management experience, the program management experience, a couple different degrees I've had through different education levels, different states experience. Again, I'm not your native Townsendite or however you want to call it, but I do have a passion for this community, passion for ag, a passion for seeing our kids here in Townsend excel across the state and across the world, really, because I've seen it. I went into a university system where I didn't have any college credits. Meanwhile, I had counterparts who were in the same state who went into college 2 years, like 2-year degree complete. And I don't know where we're at here yet. Personally, I haven't taken that level of investment to figure out what's all available. But I do feel like there is potential to make Townsend the hub, but given our centralized location of Helena, Bozeman, all the resources there we can utilize to bring here to make it better. So that's just a brief overview on me. These guys, I haven't met Kevin, but the rest of them are all my friends. So I encourage you to vote for them as well. But I think you'll have a great options here, whoever you pick. So thank you.
Awesome. Thanks, Jason. Chase Reagan, 6th generation Broadwater County resident. I graduated here. Our son graduated here in 2015. State champion football player. Very proud of him and the coaches that took him to that state championship. I think I saw Coach Warren walk in. Again, couldn't be more proud of that football team. My mom and dad graduated high school here. My grandfather graduated high school here. Just got deep roots. I love this community. I love the school. It's such a center of gravity for this community for many, many times, many years. And it's interesting that, and I want to echo a little bit of what Jason said about, I want to give the current board members some awesome accolades for the building of our new school. What an awesome achievement, and make no mistake, that has not went unnoticed. I see Jason's here. Thank you, Jason. Kevin's part of that. Sean's over there. Great job. I'm here for one primary reason and that is to help take this school to the next level. I'm really concerned about the safety of our kids. That's really my center of gravity. My vision for the school is excellence produces excellence. It's that simple. But as simple as that saying is, there's a lot of implied tasks and specified tasks that have to feed into that to make it achievable. To be able to produce excellence, we have to have excellent teachers who are supported by excellent administrators, who are supported by excellent board members. And the community are behind them. The community, you all are in charge of putting the board members in place to make sure that happens. My experience, 29 and a half years in the military, still serving as brigade commander. I'm getting towards the end of my career there. It's been a long haul, almost 30 years combat experience in 2013. Executive officer, I was second in command of the largest CSSB in theater. It taught me a lot about maturity, growth, what's truly important in life. And I will say this school is one of those things that it needs to be a priority for all of us, for the next generation, because we have to set them up for success. And we have to keep them safe. Really, I'm sure there's other pinpointed questions, so I don't want to ramble on too much. I guess educational-wise, I'll be finishing up my master's in strategic studies here in July through the Army War College. So with that, I'll turn it over to Daniel.
All right. Daniel Truesdell. Clearly, we have a lot of qualified candidates up here, and I appreciate all their passion with everything they've been saying. A little background, personal background on my part. I was born and raised here in Townsend. I went all the way through school here, K-12. With the dedication of the teachers and the passion of the teachers, I was able to continue on into college with their help with full ride scholarships. So because of that, I want to be able to turn around and give back to the community. I've always been very civic minded. I enjoy being able to help out where I can. My mom was a teacher here for a few years. She was also a teacher at White Sulphur at Helena School District for quite a bit. I got to see a little bit on the personal side of what it takes to be a teacher. I got to see that, the triumphs, obviously, but also to get to see the struggles some days. And I think that can give me a real good insight to what it takes to be a teacher here and maybe how we can help support them. And if we can get some support, then maybe we can help kind of recruit and retain some of the teachers. Going beyond there, currently I work for the state. I'm a road designer up at MBT, project manager for some multi-million-dollar projects. I'd say roundabout, but I might turn a few people away just by saying that. But I have to manage and keep track of the material costs, have estimates that we have to develop every month, and then also keep track of very many, as project manager, every other entity that works on a project, from those who work on the soil to the right-of-way to even just working with the public and hearing out their concerns and seeing what we can do to come together to reach some goals there. About 10 and a half years in that position right now. So it's been a good experience, but I think being able to kind of help manage everything really has helped out. I am a 3-year member of the city planning board, 2 years as a chairman, 1 year as vice chair. I have a lot of experience as helping run public meetings, being able to sit there and listen to the concerns of the public, seeing where we can address them at, and yet still help support the overall plan for the city. And I really feel like with that experience that we could be good in here as a board member as well. Like everybody else has said in here, obviously I have 3 kids in the school district. Safety's got to be a priority. We're looking at that. I'm concerned with teacher retention. I think for our kids to have the best opportunity that they can here and have the best education, we need to be looking right at the teacher level and seeing what we can do to help them out, but also just make the school a success. We don't want to be in a position where we've had some schools, they struggle every year trying to, make everything balance out at the end of the year, and it's facilities and whatnot that has to be at a cost. So I think keep an eye on that and just kind of a better understanding. And then on a personal desire outside of that is, if elected, I'm really excited just to see the back side of this that the public doesn't see, of how everything works, how the budget works out, how the funding works out, and just kind of the gears there. But appreciate you guys' time for coming in and listen to all of us ramble a little bit.
Okay, number 2, I'm gonna start with Andrea, just gonna go all the way through. Okay, do you support opening public school classrooms to people from other careers and giving them the fast track route to become a qualified teacher?
Interesting. So to clarify, what you're saying is like people who don't have a 4-year degree to become a
Correct.
qualified
They would be-
teacher
Maybe you want to be a nurse and now you decide you want to be a teacher, so they're going to fast track you in 2 years and you can become a teacher.
through the school district.
No, it would be through Office of Public Instruction or,
I that's not something I have thought about. However, I can say that is a way we have addressed in healthcare. The shortage of nurses is you have 2-year RNs. They'll go to a 2-year program and they come out. And I work alongside many of those, and they're wonderful nurses. I think that they could be wonderful teachers in that same regard. I don't know that I think there has to be a difference in compensation for somebody who has invested their time to get a 4-year degree versus someone who fast tracked and then maybe works towards that. I would support it, but I also feel like you have to have an interview process that weeds out people who are doing it simply to just hurry up and get it done versus somebody who is actually passionate for teaching, because there's a difference between a calling and doing something for a profession. And some people can do something very well with less education just because they're born to be a teacher. And so it's not a cut and dried question, yes or no. I would support it. I think you still have to go through a lot of different interview or process to see if they're right fit for your school. But at the end of the day, we do need to have people who teach our children.
It's a good question. I think each situation, kind of like Andrea said, is a little bit different in that you have a lot of qualified individuals who may be able to provide the experience, but maybe not have the certifications just in terms of a teaching degree. I think especially in the VOTech world, you've got somebody who's been a lifelong welder and they're ready to come in and teach welding in our school or teach shop in our schools, but yet doesn't have that 4-year credentialing. I think there's potential to utilize that real world experience to help our students grow. At the same time, you don't want just somebody to fill a seat. You don't want somebody just to come in and we had a personal situation this year where I saw it come in late. We were willing to try it, but it didn't work out, and the school took care of it. But at the same time, as Andrea said, I think teaching and the dedication, as Daniel described, and we see by many of our teachers, it's a dedication. It's a calling. You don't get paid a lot. You have long hours. You have family issues. You have all kinds of things that you're doing beyond just a teacher. You're a life coach. You have a lifetime impact on all the students that you touch or that you have in your classrooms. So I guess I think there's room for it. And I know there's been a couple of bills this session that have targeted that idea as well. But I wouldn't just blanket say anybody who wants to do it can do it, because it's not the case.
Thanks, Jason. I would echo the same thing. You don't want to box yourself into a corner, put a policy out there, because there's some really gifted individuals out there that are just natural leaders or natural teachers. And I can reflect back to some of my teachers here at the school that just absolutely phenomenal. And there are those gifted individuals out there that may not need the full 4-year curriculum down at Western that someone else would have to go through because of their gifts. So I think you take it on a case-by-case basis, because you don't want to box yourself into a corner and potentially lose that person to another school. But at the same time, you have to be very careful. You have to be very methodical and have a good procedure in place to truly vet that teacher. Maybe there's more examinations done, more follow-ups, just more classroom observation. Maybe we talk with the students more, how that teacher's doing if they don't have the full criteria. You just don't want to box yourself in the corner because there are gifted individuals out there. So I would leave it as a either or.
I feel like it could be a fine line to walk, because you look at the teachers that have gone through this education process right now and all the hard work that they've had to do. And I don't want to see it as being degrading to them that now we can just take, potentially anybody walk in and now be a teacher. But I can't say it's not a good idea. My education has nothing to do with what I do right now as work. I started out in a completely different area at an entry level, and I've worked my way up. So I'm one of those people that have come in from a different field and been very successful. And I feel like you certainly could have that opportunity for people that come in, have a passion, want to be a teacher. And I would say for 90% of them, those that stick around, it's because of passion. They're not sticking around for the pay. So if it's the right person, then I think it's a worthwhile investment. And I think you'll find out really quickly whether it's a worthwhile investment or not. If not, I feel like they'd probably get burnt out pretty quickly. So I would say, yes, I would support it. Again, there'd have to be a really good vetting system. It couldn't be anything less than any current teachers. You want to make sure they still have the same ethics and qualifications from there. But I think it's certainly a possibility that could be looked into.
Okay, Jason, I'm going to
Kevin,
start with you on number
Yeah.
two. Oh, sorry, Kevin. Sorry.
I do support that, the fast track. I've heard that talked about before. I think there's prerequisites that will be in place for any individual in their field to enter a 2-year program like that. And I think there should also be requirements for continuing education after they completed and started work, and evaluation after they're in a teaching position to make sure that they're, performing at the level they should be.
Sorry about skipping you over.
No worries.
Okay, Jason, what is your view of the role of charter schools in public education? What is your position on charter schools?
They can both coexist, right? I don't think that I'm in a position to say that every situation for every student is the right school, the right system, home schools, charter schools, private school, public school. I think there's a need for all of them. I think that there's definitely an opportunity for parents to make that choice, right? Certainly we'd love to have them in public education. There's certainly a role for it. There's also, again, I would say both. That's just my position.
I really don't have much to add to that. I would agree with that statement. It's to each their own, and each situation, each family has their different needs and whatnot. So, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, same. I mean, you look at just even at the student level, the individuals those that work very well with learning from a book, and then there's those that can learn very well from using their hands, and I think it goes the same way to look at the different types of education. Maybe they excel at home in their through homeschooling or through a charter school, and maybe that's the best opportunity for them. I think as long as they can coexist equally and it doesn't negatively impact them, I think they certainly could be definitely benefit. So yeah, I would support it.
Okay, Kevin?
Charter schools got their start in an urban environment where the public school systems had failed, and parents in those areas sought ways in order to educate their children. And they got public funding to do that. And really, that was the inception of charter schools. I don't think they fit in Montana. I don't think that, I think our public school system here is great. I think our rural schools are great. They've performed, wealth, compared to the rest of the country. I don't agree with the idea of taking public money and allowing people to, and they have there's a couple of bills in right now, and allowing people to use that to set up an exclusive school. If you're going to use public money, I think you have to admit every student who applies to it. And charter schools aren't set up that way. So I don't think they're a good fit for our state. And we do have options for parents in private schools and homeschooling in a lot of different environments. And if people want to do that, more power to them. I support them in doing that. They should have the choice to go educate their children in any way they want. I don't agree that our public money should fund that. And I don't believe that funding should be taken away from public schools to fund charter schools.
I probably should have done more research on charter schools. I did see that we are one of 4 states that don't have charter schools. So I have to believe that there is some benefit to them, as far as I know that some do, maybe some more of like a hands-on Montessori type situation versus what the public school system offers to the general public. And I know that there are different ways, even in Helena School District, where people set out bids to get into a different sort of program. And I don't know if that's along the lines of charter school. So I really honestly can't give you a great answer for that because I don't know enough about them to tell you.
Okay, number 4, Chase's turn. Is there a particular issue that motivates you to serve on the school board?
Yeah, I mentioned it in my introduction. And I do want to caveat that because it's not only the safety for our kids, but it's a safety for our teachers, that those go interchangeable, interhand. I mean, that is my center of gravity. Oh, sorry.
Speak it louder, please. Thank you.
Sorry. That is my center of gravity, is first and foremost, before anything, our teachers need to feel safe so they can provide a safe learning environment for our kids. And us as parents need to, beyond a doubt. And this day and age is different from when I grew up, different from when you all grew up. We're on different times, and we need to adjust, whether we like it or not. And there's some things that I think that can be done to help bring safety to both our kids and our teachers to a better, more comfortable level for all involved. So,
Just one?
Yeah.
Primary. Your primary, yeah. No, there is a lot of things that I'd like to, focus on, but, Chase already said it. Having 3 kids in the school, you gotta look at the safety. I guess 15-year-old got taken out of school today in Helena for having a gun. I mean, that's hitting a little bit close to home between that and Helena and Great Falls recently. We do have to look at the safety, and if I feel like anywhere, if we can provide a safe environment, not only does that help out with the basics of it, obviously that they're in a safer place, but I think it just helps out everything. It helps out the education, helps out teachers wanting to be there, helps out the community to know that you don't stress out with, any of us parents going, boy, is my kid gonna come off the bus tonight when I get home? So I think that's really has to be a focus as a parent, is you gotta make sure your kids are safe, so.
Kevin?
I've had to answer this question recently from my family. Why are you doing this? I think for me, when we started the planning process for the elementary school, we were looking to improve education, improve the educational environment. 21st century learning came up quite a bit, safety improvements, health, every aspect really. And as part of that planning process, the next step was to utilize the school in the best way possible. And because of COVID, that planning process, we're at least a year behind of where we should be. And that's something I feel like it's not finished, and it's something that I would like to finish. and see through to the end. And I think we have a great school here. Originally, I got into the school board many years ago, and I still feel this way. There was a lot of bright kids. I was helping coach different sports in town, and here were these kids who were so bright and so funny and fun to be around with. And I would find out they're struggling in school. I just couldn't imagine how that could be. And what I found, I think, is that it depends on the family. It depends on how school is emphasized and the importance of that. And I've also found out that the number one indicator of student success is how well their parents are engaged and support that child in school. And I really believe that we can't ever be good enough at that. And it's something that, as a school, education in general needs to continue to engage parents and try to get better at that every day.
I would say that I'm here because I'm passionate about my children, of course, in particular. But as a parent, we're all parents here, but I also see that sometimes there is a different perspective as a mom than versus a dad. I know my husband and I have different perspectives of what life in the school realm is, and he works very hard, and he's actually, involved in the school, but involved in our kids. But having that perspective is one thing. I also the practical day-to-day life of not only our kids, but our teachers and what that is like. I really want to be here to help support the teachers to be able to do their job to the best of their ability. I will be the first to tell you that all of the financial, economic stuff that probably is addressed within the school board is not going to be my strength. But my strength is the practicality of what life is like in the day of a child in the school, what life is like in the day of the life of a teacher, and what they need to do their job better, and what a child needs to succeed better, because that's where my focus is. It's on the human part of day-to-day life in the school. And so that's what I'm passionate about. What is a teacher's life like? What is the student's life like? And how can I help facilitate that and make it better?
Be honest, I haven't been really involved in politics or run for school board before ever. But one of the things that came through to me and my primary reason for filing the last hour of the last day was I happened to attend one of the strategic planning meetings, and it brought me to a place of gratitude, one for our teachers, but also a place where I felt like they don't have a voice, or they're being kind of set up a little bit in terms of their roles and responsibilities. And so I felt like if there's a way for me to bring that clarity to roles and responsibilities, as well as to help bring a voice for the teachers, because I really believe, again, like I said, and has been said before, that's where it starts with our quality education, is that quality teacher. And that's where it's going to go through with the students. Sure, facilities are nice, but I probably went to school in an asbestos building too, like many of you guys did. The same time, that lasting impact, that lifelong impact is how a student, how a teacher was treated. And that connection right there was the reason that I got into this right away.
All right, number 5 is for Daniel. How do you feel about a 4-day school week and why?
I get the hard one. Huh?
You're just the start. We get to listen to your answers.
I see a lot of benefit to having a 4-day school week. I think we have some concerns right now. We have a lot of open positions in our school for teachers. And I know we're significantly behind on being on the salaries for these teachers for surrounding communities. I think it's a large gap that it's going to be hard to jump all at once. But if we can provide anything to help recruit and retain teachers here, and if it means that providing a 4-day school week is what will help, then I think I'm all for it. I've seen teachers, as I mentioned, my mom going through school and all these other teachers that I've known growing up. School doesn't end on Friday. School doesn't end at 4 o'clock for them. And I have one of my neighbors, I watch her every day, not in a creepy way. But I see my neighbor walk home every day, 5:30 every night. She's up at school until 5:30 every night. 5 o'clock on Sunday evenings, she's coming back to this school to prepare for the week. And I just, in that particular person, I picture it and I go, wow, she could come in and catch up from the week on Friday. She could prepare for herself for the next week on Friday and be able to gain her evenings back, be able to gain her weekends back. I think there's a lot of benefits that we could gain from that. I think it's worthwhile to see the school go one step farther and be able to look at what a 4-day school week could look like. I think right now, just to be look on a blanket, say, well, 4 days or 5 days, it's really hard for everyone to be able to make that decision because there's not really a lot of clarity as to what it could look like. And I think it's worth the time and investment to be able to see if that would be a good fit from the school, because I really feel like there could be certainly a lot of benefits from the community to the teachers to the students or everybody.
Well, I guess this is the question, isn't it? We haven't had 6 candidates for a while. I think it's a mixed bag, honestly, and we went through this issue several years ago through strategic planning, and we left the issue at providing research and looking for research that supported the idea that it was a benefit to education because, the bottom line is this is a school and we need to teach and educational performance, academic performance should be, high academic performance should be our goal. And looking at the research that we have, it's still a mixed bag. There is nothing to show that the 4-day week is going to improve our academic performance. In fact, to the contrary, it's most likely that academic performance will go down. There's nothing to support the fact, now I'm going to get some argument on this, that there's no research to support that it will help to retain teachers. I haven't seen anything that backs that up. There are other ways that we could do, that we could try and we could implement to help retain teachers. And through our planning process, we have not gotten to explore those other options. And I think that needs to be done. I don't think that's finished yet. We do have a survey out right now, and I'm interested to take a look at that. I look at the 2020 bond election. During very uncertain times, our community stepped up and supported the school and supported quality education. And I think that gave, as far as me as a board member, gave me the direction forward to follow. There is a lot of different research there, and and you can cherry pick your way through there and find any result you want. But I think if you take the full width and breadth of it, I have a hard time seeing the benefit for it, especially in education, especially in what do we do with these kids on Fridays who have no place to go, who have working parents? How does that impact those families? Do we need additional staff and budget to run like the after-school program has been tossed around? Where does that money, where does that staffing come from if we're already short-staffed? Teacher staffing is a problem across the country right now. Look at the 4-day-a-week schools in our conference. They are advertising, they are short teacher positions as well. It's not a panacea for really anything that I see. And I realize there's a lot of demand for that, and working forward with that, I guess there are some studies that show increased instructional time will compensate for being on the 4-day week. I'm not sure about that. I'd like to see some more behind that, but that's kind of where I sit with it right now. And it's mostly with the educational component. I don't think it will provide the same education. And it's also with supporting families, working families here. I think We don't have sufficient daycare in this community, and it's very expensive. And I think we need to really take a hard look at it before we make a jump.
It's such a loaded question. I've thought a lot about it. I've asked my children, and I have one child that's for it and one child that's against it. Oddly, not the way I thought it would be either. I thought it would have been the opposite. And I feel like you can find research that will back up whatever your particular desire / argument is. You can say that it doesn't retain teachers, or it does retain teachers. You can say education is poor, you can say education is great. And so I look at it as you kind of have to set that aside, and you have to look at our community, and you have to say, we have to figure out how to retain teachers. We have to figure out how to make teachers want to be here, feel supported, feel like they're happy within their job. Because ultimately, if we are happy in our job and what we do and the leadership that we have, we will retain teachers. You have people who will they'll follow the money, or they will follow good leadership. But as far as a 4-day school week, I kind of just, at this point, I'm going, okay, if we can't recruit teachers and we can't keep teachers, do we have to think outside the box and figure out what it is? And if we try it, and I know that, there's so much that goes into trying something and it fails, you have to be willing to walk it back if it isn't good. I don't know, and I honestly don't have a strong opinion. I have 2 children who I would absolutely love to have home on Fridays. Is that the best for them? I don't know. I have many friends whose children go to Jefferson High School, and it has been a wonderful thing for them at the high school level. Would that translate to the elementary school level? I don't know. And I am concerned. I have major concerns about that. An elementary school kid can't necessarily communicate that they don't have a warm house, or they don't have food, or they don't have a ride somewhere. A high school kid can, or they can, a high school kid can get a job on the weekends if they're not part of extracurricular, and an elementary school kid is stuck at home. I have an intact family, and I have a husband that is around that also takes part in that. And there are a large amount of children who do not. And so what is the line between where we are obligated to provide that versus we are just obligated to provide an education? So it's very multifaceted. I've been asked this question many times after people found out, oh, you're running for school board. Well, what do you think about the 4-day school week? And frankly, I can't say 100% I support it and 100% I'm against it, but I can say that in order for us to have a great education, we have to have great teachers. And if we can't keep them and we can't recruit them, then it doesn't really matter if we go to school 4 days or 5 days. If we don't have teachers to teach our children, and we have increased class sizes because teachers are leaving and now all of a sudden you have to combine this, then we won't have a quality education, whether they're here for 4 days or 5 days. So I'm willing to think outside the box.
Yeah, I don't have a lot to add other than what Andrea has said too. I mean, personally, 4 days would be great. At the same time, I also realize that affects a lot of families. And I commuted to Helena for the first 5 years of my job with the state every day from here, north of here a little bit, but now it's an hour commute for me each way. That said, I think we have to do something. Unfortunately, right now, I feel like we push the decision off so long that we run out of time to look for all those alternative solutions. And so what's our immediate solution? Well, we can't raise taxes. Nobody wants that. We can't pay them more because we don't have the money. So then what else can we do? And right now, I think that 4-day is the option because our hand's being forced by other school districts. Would I have liked to have this discussion in October when it started? Yeah. Would I have liked to have proposed alternatives in December? Yeah. But here we are. And can I say that that's going to be the solution to teacher recruitment and retention? I can't say that. But the teachers in the room or the experts that I've talked to about it feel like that will help. You know, Townsend, when we moved here 6 years ago, you could buy a house. Now you can't. Even on a two-income family, it's really difficult to purchase anything in town. So there are other solutions. Some school districts are looking at teacher housing owned by the school. There are other solutions that we can approach, but we don't have the time or the luxury right now to push that decision out another 2 years or 3 years or 5 years. We have to have the decision now, whichever way that falls. And I realize there's a survey sent out. I think it was a poor rollout because it was not accompanied with additional information to explain what the school is trying to accomplish. That said, that's out there. Again, I don't know what else the alternatives are. I don't know what the options are, but unfortunately, we have to make a decision and we're out of time. And if it's going to keep good teachers here for 4 days a week, I'd rather have that than a crummy teacher 5 days.
So I'll be the first to say, I like to prepare my answers. And so when you talk about off the cuff, and I knew this question was going to be asked, but this is a very complex question. There's not an easy answer to it. I read a book, Smartest Kids in the World, and it's a great book. I really recommend every educator to read it, every administrator to read it. And they did a global study, and at the end of this global study, they turned out that Finnish kids in Finland are the smartest kids in the world. And it comes down to one thing, and it's the investment in the teachers. It's an awesome read. And what it comes down to for us as board members, at the end of the day, what does the academic performance say from our kids? By going to a 4-day work week, and if we invest in our teachers, is that going to improve performance in our kids? Then I'm all for it. If it doesn't, if the research and the data comes back and says, no, the 4-day work week doesn't, it actually hinders it, I'm against it. I'm a methodical guy. I'm an analytical guy. I like to see the numbers. I like to see the data before I make any decision. And because this is so complex, this is going to take a little time. But I would rather take time, make the right decision to begin with, than rush to failure. Because our kids' lives truly are at stake. And this isn't something we don't want to take lightly. The numbers are my strength as a businessman. That's what I love. And I think there's ways to find money for our teachers. I really think that their wages that they're getting paid right now is too low. And again, going back to this book, if you read it, these teachers are paid probably at the top tier of the world teachers in comparison. So that just goes to show you, top tier paid teachers equates to top tier kids' performance in school. And so how do you do that? Well, you look at ways to trim the fat, so to speak. You look at administration. You look at creative ways to save money and put it into the teachers so they can in turn put it into the kids. But here's the deal. I'll be very upfront with each and every one of you. If it comes to with expectations of our teachers. If you're a teacher that is maximizing the minimum, I'm not your guy. I'm not. I expect performance at the end of the day, and that's truly why I'm at where I'm at in the military. And we have probably a plethora of awesome teachers here in the school. I've seen them work. I've seen them teach my kids, and I thank God every day that they are still here teaching our kids. I think back to my own personal experiences. Mrs. Poole, Mrs. Turcott singing the Hokey Pokey at kindergarten. I mean, we have been blessed here in this community. So it all comes down to talent management, too, of our teachers, our administration. It's all about talent management. It's all about expectation management. It's all about setting a vision and holding people accountable, showing them what the expectation is, and if they're not meeting it, guiding them to meet it. If they don't make it, maybe Manhattan's a better place to go. Maybe 3 floors. So with that, that said, it's a tough question. And I want to do more research, data, I want to get smart on it, educated on it, and it's got to fit well with the community too. 2 years ago, my wife and I, between the two of us, had 4 jobs. There's no way we could have done a 4-day school day. There's just, my mom was already covering down on drill weekends, watching our kids. So it also has to work for the community too. It's just not, it's a complex situation that we need to work through and come up with a good decision out the gate and not rush to failure.
Okay, Kevin, how do you feel about staff involvement in administration evaluations and why?
I guess I haven't been involved in a process like that. We've had some input. I think it's important. I think it's difficult to do because you have the administrator faculty relationship there. And to have the faculty actually reviewing the administrator, I think it makes it difficult. It takes more involvement from the board, actually, I think, to make those evaluations and to make those decisions.
In my experience, just in my personal professional world, there is a element of us evaluating our leadership at the hospital. And I think it's important. Does it carry, the full weight? No, but if you are being an effective leader, you can expect glowing reviews. If you're being an ineffective leader, you may not, and you can learn from that. As long as there is some ability to separate, you will always have outliers that say things or do things or, are kind of out to get maybe an administrator. But by and large, I think as an administrator, you should want your staff's opinion on or your staff's evaluation on the job performance, because it makes iron sharpens iron. And so we have to be open and want that, but that it can't be the end all be all.
No, I'm all for it as well. As Andrew said too, the 360 reviews, as we call it, basically you have reviews both ways. So administration, teacher, however, in my situation, it's me with our other regional access managers. But in reality, the key is that constant feedback. If you're doing that 1 time a year or even 2 times a year, that's not good leadership. If you're continuously interacting, those can be so beneficial. And if that review is just happening that 1 time a year, and the only time I get to spill when I'm frustrated with my boss is that 1 time a year, it doesn't work at all. But the criticism or the benefit now is that we have this bi-weekly check-in where we're constantly going back and forth on reviewing each other, not in the formal setting, but in an informal setting. And because that is essential to keep as a leader, again, it's not the title, but it's empowering your people that you're responsible for to be inspired to do their job to the best of their ability, get the blockers out of the way, help them succeed. And I feel like if that is just a one-way street of me telling you what to do, that doesn't work. They say a leader helps pull, a boss pushes, right? I'm pushing you. I'm telling you what to do all the time, That doesn't work. And in my experience, I get Chase, that's how a lot of the original military structure is set up, but we have to have that constant feedback back and forth. Again, it may be not quite on the formal structure, but the informal structure for sure definitely needs to happen.
That's good. One thing with the 360, I would take up a notch here for our school, and it's trifold. So a teacher is going to get feedback and assessments from students, administration, and peers. Threefold. Their peers, the students, and the administration. Same goes with administration. All right. And with that, you'll be amazed of what the trends will say. You're going to get onesie twosies on these, but you take the outliers and you put them aside and you focus on trends. And on those trends, it's just like the memories I have of my teachers here. I know who the awesome teachers were and what they did and what made them awesome. If, as a student, I had a platform to show that while they're going through the year, I think that would be so beneficial for our teachers. I think it'd be so beneficial for our administration. And you'll find as the administration that we see, it makes my job easier as a manager because I collect the data, and already because the teachers are getting feedback on this 360 platform, they already know what areas they need to get better at. And again, it all comes down to excellence produces excellence, right? And that's one way to do it. It's a successful platform to use. I would integrate it here in our school systems, and I think we would see some wonderful fruit come out of that 360 evaluation.
You guys are lucky you have 360 evaluation. It's not how it is that at my work. And one of the issues I see with that is everything looks really good from the top down, but a lot of administrators, I don't necessarily always know what potentially is really going on, what the morale of the staff is actually going on, what the issues are. Because if teachers are not given an opportunity, or lower end workers in any area, not given the opportunity to turn around and say, hey, this is some of the issues. This is how, straight up, you're making my workday difficult, and there's a solution. I think they need to be able to have that opportunity to be able to work out some of those kinks. It might be as simple as, a teacher walks in and every single day they see an administrator and they just shake their head and it's just as miserable as it could be. Now they get to give an evaluation. That administrator is looking at them going, well, shoot, if that was all it took, then let's work on that a little bit. 30-second conversation, and all of a sudden we could be improving everything. Now, if that teacher walks in, they have a better relationship with their administrator. Now they're going to be in a better position to be teaching our children every day. So I think there's a lot of benefit to allowing that to go both directions, so that it opens up some avenues of communication.
And this isn't mine, I'm starting on some of the ones I got from the floor, but this one's for Andrea. The Montana School Board Association provides board training, legal services, and political development to promote K-12 education through legislative advocacy. Also, in their strategic plan, the core purpose is to develop the full potential of each child through the school board leadership. In your opinion, what does developing the full potential of each child through school board leadership mean to you?
Good job.
Right? Yeah.
That was a lot of words. It was very wordy. No.
I actually kind of budgeted out, I have to tell you that.
I guess what I'm hearing is basically, how does the school board facilitate, what was the last sentence again?
What do you think developing the potential of each child through the school board leadership means?
I think developing the potential for each child is that we have to potentially look at what are some different ways that kids learn and what are some different ways we can implement them into our school. Like a one size does not fit all. For instance, one thing I was saying, even this morning at the Mint, I went to the Mint with my husband. And we were talking about, I wish my kids had PE all year. They're boys. They're active. They need to get some energy out. I don't understand why we only have PE. And I didn't grow up in the school, but my husband did. And we had PE, And, so what are some ways that could facilitate better education? For instance, and I'm not going to get deeply into the strategic planning, but I heard about block scheduling, and I was talking to some folks that said, well, we've been doing that in Kansas for however many years, some kids would learn better by focusing on one thing for a specific amount of time. But another kid, that's overwhelming. They get bored with it. They can't, I'm sick and tired of math. I don't want to do math for, not one size fits all. So if there is an ability for, through the Montana Board of Education, I believe it was, and the school boards to examine other ways that one size doesn't fit all, I think that would promote learning within. I don't know if that answers that.
Good job. Good job. Yeah.
Now your turn. Now your turn. I passed the baton.
Thank you. No, it's a good question. I think from a board perspective, it's taking a look at the big picture and also the end goal, right? So we can't be all things to everybody all the time. That's just not fiscally possible. At the same time, making that opportunity available. When I grew up, not terribly long ago, but apparently close enough to 40, the mentality was you had to get a 4-year degree or you weren't going to have a job, and you had to have that education because that was going to get you more money in life. Well, times have changed. The world has changed. The needs, the desires. I am adamantly pushing my kids to look at vocational opportunities because there's no plumbers, there's no welders, there's no electricians, so I think there's a lot of opportunity, again, to look at the bigger picture, which is providing that quality education. At the same time, there may be places where we just can't do everything. It's just not possible. And so that's how I see the board's role in that is looking at what's going to be the best help for our students now, 10 years from now, 15 years from now, and then prepare them for the world. Because that's one thing I felt, even coming out of an undergraduate degree, I felt woefully underprepared for what the real world was like. My graduate degree helped me experience a lot more work experience type stuff. And even in high school, I had Wednesday afternoons off to go do work experience, they called it, in high school, and you basically worked. Again, there's potentially credit opportunities for work experience. There's a lot of different things to help prepare students that the board can look at as a holistic picture, which again then helps our students in the end.
As a board member, I'm not sure if I'll answer it correctly per that awesome question, but I'll do the best I can. We need to support the capability groups. Is that the right terminology? I'm going to phone a friend. Wendy, what was the groups that they called within the classroom where the top performers, it used to be 3 or 4 years ago, we had them here in the school, and they went away. Do you remember what those are called?
These things
Tier.
Was it
Tier learning?
Yeah, within like 6th grade, you have the higher level math kids going to this class.
Like the ability grouping?
Yes, the ability group.
Okay.
Thank you. So, it's been a long day. So the ability groups, I think, need to come back within the school. The second part is we need to support distance learning for our kids so they can get ahead on college credits. If they're capable, whether it's sophomore, junior, they can start taking college credits and make sure that it's out there so they all know how to do it and that we administrate that properly. So we're setting those top performers up for success when they get to college. So a lot of them can start out as a sophomore in their first year of college. I think that's critical. And I know that's changed a little bit in the last couple of years, but I think we have room for improvement in that area. But the ability groups, I think, are key. And one of the things that concerns me that's going on is if we have a couple students in a classroom that are not keeping up with the rest, it seems like, from what I've been told, that the whole class is stunted and slowed down to make sure that student is get caught back up. And I know in college, when I was struggling with the class, I had stayed after school or went and met with the professor afterwards. So I don't think it's right that our teachers feel like they have to hold back their classroom to teach to the couple of students that are struggling. It should be teach to the median of the class and to make sure that the top performers are supported so they can continue to be top performers. And then if there's students that need additional help, we have programs in place to get them up to speed. So.
I agree with a lot what's being said up here. I think we have to look at it and look at the different levels where the kids are at. If we see that students are struggling in a particular area, maybe kind of seeing what could be done there, you know, a different learning environment, different hands-on environment, what needs to, we all learn differently. I mean, as we're talking about vocational work, if we can kind of reach out and be able to trigger those kids and get them to excel, I think it'd be beneficial for that group. At the other end of it, if we have kids that are going through school and they have 105% in everything they have, maybe we need to be doing something different for them too. I don't want to push them back to an F and challenge them so much, but maybe we need to find something that gives them a little bit of challenge, that doesn't make them so, you know, get bored in class or anything like that, but just kind of keeping them going. So I think that the key would be to be able to challenge all the students, but make sure that they're have the opportunities to learn the way that they need to learn.
Let me go back to the question. MTSBA is asking the board's role in developing the full potential of each child, correct? Is that basically what it is?
Yes.
I think the board's role, and I think it's been touched on here, is the visioning process and to provide an environment for the administrators and teachers to do what they do, remove the impediments that's keeping them from their ability to do their job, support them, and provide that interface between the community and the administration, so that communication is open, cultivate the trust of our community, cultivate the support of our community for the school. Those are all things board members can do. You know, I'm a construction guy and I can go into a classroom, but I wouldn't know what the heck I was doing. So as far as teaching kids, and we have experts there, and over the years, I've developed a deep respect for our administrators and our teachers to do that, given the right environment and given the opportunity.
Jason, what ideas, other than, I know a lot of you mentioned, but what further ideas do you have for recruiting high-quality teachers?
Without having a good handle on the budget, it's really hard for me to say. I mean, sky's the limit, right? If there's no budget, then you just do whatever you want. But that's not reality. So from my perspective, like I said, I've heard about, and one of the things we're doing too as a state agency is looking at employee housing, because the housing prices, you can't afford it, even on a state salary. Similarly, retention bonuses, performance incentives, which all of these things have like good intentions, but they're also always strings attached, right? Even performance bonuses. Well, I grade harder than you do, so guess what? Or you grade easier than I do, so that just affects everything. But there are ways I think that we can recruit and retain teachers. But I would look to professionals, i.e. teachers, administrators, to give me those suggestions, because I don't know that world well enough to say this is what makes you tick, this is what gets you to come here. I would have said, you know, housing was cheaper 5 years ago, but it's not that much cheaper. I would have said the opportunity to, I mean, if there's 800 some job postings on OPI's website, granted they're for all different things, but really it's going to be a cultural thing that's going to keep people here and engaged. And that's where we have to make strides, I think, with our culture, with the board's interaction, with the administration's interaction, with the teachers as well, because it's going to take a collective team effort to make this successful. And I really do think there's a lot of potential here. Like I said, being centrally located, we've got a lot of options and a lot of opportunities. But I don't know, I'd be open to hearing any and all suggestions. I wish we had this discussion 8 months ago.
I think it holds to be true. What I found, your best recruiting is your word of mouth, whether it's business, military, and I would challenge anyone that said it wouldn't be associated with the school as well. Your word of mouth is people want to be part of something greater than themselves. And so it just comes down to creating a school that is just that, is great. And with it comes a vision, and then you have to put the right people in place to make that vision achievable. It's just like Governor Gianforte, that's what he says. You surround yourself with good people and just watch what happens. That's been his key to success. That's what I've tried to do throughout my career. And if we do that here, recruiting is going to be easy. But we have to get to here first. And we got some work to do. We need to roll up our sleeves. And again, we have a foundation built here at this awesome new school. But there's a lot more work to do.
There's probably a lot of things out there that could potentially help, and not being in the educator role, I'm not sure everything that could be provided or see in the budget. But I think Chase hit on an important point there. If we can start working on better work environments for everyone, having better communication, better relationships at work, it's going to be that word that teachers are going to go to conferences and be like, yeah, you know what, it is really great. They really seem to care at our school, and that's going to make these teachers want to come here. And on top of that is the opportunities we can provide for our kids. Parents are going to be sharing. I know we'll run into people at different sport events and or at work. Yeah, the kids have these opportunities, and that's going to draw more people to the community, have a more positive outlook for the area. And I think by being able to do that, we may be able to provide a little bit better environment and retain and recruit some teachers to here.
Could you restate the question, please?
What further ideas do you have for recruiting high-quality teachers?
We've been through a lot of them, and many of them have been touched on here. And I think great culture, it's been touched on. Having a great reputation throughout the state, and Townsend does have a good reputation. There's financial incentives, maybe housing. We've looked at some great ideas came from our administration on setting up daycare for teachers with young children, opening that up, of course, to the public as well. I think there's many things that we haven't had the opportunity to get to yet. And I think we'd be remiss if we didn't explore those first before, changing our schedule. Thank you.
As far as specific ideas, I think that's difficult to say. More of a blanket is that in speaking with the teachers, and you have to first explore what's not working and why is it not working. Because I think we can throw random ideas out there, but what if they don't need childcare, and that's not going to help these people, or they don't, so there's a lot of great ideas, but really starting with, okay, what are we missing? And then working our way, okay, now recruiting people here, housing is always going to be a huge issue, and money, again, as I stated before, business is not my strength. So trying to rearrange that and figure that out, I'm going to be completely transparent, is not where it's not my strength in this. But in coming up with ways, I know that teacher recruitment, I will be the biggest recruiter. I think I already am. I love this school, and I love the teachers. I cannot speak to a situation where I have not felt heard and by the teachers, and my children have succeeded here. And I'm willing to tell everyone and I do on Facebook. I know I talk about the teachers and I talk about this school, and that's great, but I'm not here every day. And I don't know what they're struggling with. So I think bottom line is we would have to start and ask them, where are we lacking and how can we better facilitate that? And we can't make it everything to everybody. I mean, I think we've discussed that even with students. It won't always be everything to everyone, but really what is the barrier, and try to work from there.
If you were asked, I believe it's Chase's turn, if you were asked to give accolades or recommendations for a student attending our school, what would you say?
For student attending, the last part I didn't.
Right, about students attending our school, what would you say? What would you say was the wonderful things about the kids attending our school right now?
Well, I would say the teachers, and again, this is the majority, and they care. I see that day in and day out with my two girls, and we've been so blessed. In fact, the new pizza place going in on Main Street, I talked with that family. They're moving up from Utah, and they asked me the same thing. And I said, our school's awesome. And I said, we got teachers doing some wonderful things outside of school hours over and above what they're called to do. And I gave some examples and they were just blown away. And they're very excited to be soon to be part of this community. And so it is our teachers. And my hesitation is that it just gives me great pause because of some events that have happened recently with the strategic plan. I felt like our teachers that have done such a great job for so long, I feel like they're not getting the guidance, the vision, the equipment. I just felt like they need some direction, some support. And truly that's, as a board member, that's what I give them my word. That's what I would give them is support, direction, vision, expectations, and then every tool that I know for them to be successful so our kids can be successful. But it's by far our teachers.
I don't want to sit up here and just mirror Chase and seem like I have nothing to say. But I would say teachers again, and maybe, with him saying it and me wanting to say the same thing, it does speak a lot for the teachers here. I've had 3 kids, I still have 3 kids. And I'm sure my wife's watching this. But I have 3 kids at school. They excel very well, and they can't do that on their own. I'll brag. I really think they're smart kids, but they don't get everything just by doing that. They have to have that support here. They have to have teachers that care. And there are some teachers that my kids have been very lucky with all the teachers. But boy, when you get to sit down and talk to them, you get to almost see that fire in their eyes. Like they're just passionate, they care, they want to see them succeed. And beyond the education, I'm sure many parents, they've seen their kids have ups and downs. Maybe not necessarily at an educational, but maybe just emotional or personal. And to see that the teachers there just want to take that extra step and make sure they feel comfortable at school, or make sure they feel supported, or if there's something going on to help them out. And that's what I see. And I haven't had opportunity to talk to anybody moving into the area, but I think that speaks a lot for the school. For me to see what I've seen with my kids and many other kids and the teachers here and everything, I think that's our biggest win right now, for sure.
Okay, I have to ask for the question again, sorry,
Okay, let me reread it.
because I thought it was,
If you were writing a recommendation or giving accolades about students attending our school, what would you say?
about students attending the school. I guess I heard the question differently. I think our students are great. I think the clubs that we have in the school attest to that. The Skills USA, business professionals, Close Up just got back from a trip. They did that trip to Japan. there's a whole other component that makes school exciting for kids. And I know that a lot of our kids wouldn't be here and probably wouldn't be as engaged in school if they didn't have these other clubs. So I think that's a testament to our kids, and watching our kids travel, the sports teams travel. We always hear from other schools, other districts that we have good kids and they're well behaved wherever they go. So.
This question, I kind of have, I'm going to give a shout out to administration. I have a nephew that just graduated who will talk about Mrs. H and how much he enjoyed her. And my parents talk about how she invests so much and she's always at all the things. And I mean, does her husband ever come to the things? Because she's always at all the things. I have a son who was frustrated with the situation today, and he's like, Mom, and I just went over to Mr. Rock's office, and I don't know how many kids would feel that they could actually they could march themselves to the principal's office and talk to them, because they felt that not only were they going to be heard, but it was a comfortable place for them to be. And I have felt that from both of them, along with when my kids were in third grade, one ended up with Mrs. Gravely, who was absolutely important because she gave him a hug every morning. And the other one ended up with Mrs. Flynn, which was perfect because he wants everything lined out and he would like to sit and be, every structure and this. And I could go on and on and on about specific situations about how my kids have succeeded because of the people that are in this school. So they do lament that they didn't get to be in the new school. And I still hear about that. One got new lockers and the other did not get new lockers, and that has been an issue. But by and large, it's the people that's within the building. And I can brag on these teachers and I can brag on these administrators because my children brag on them and feel very confident and comfortable with them. And I think that's the most important thing, to be honest with you.
I'll take it a little bit different direction, not undermining or undercutting anything what they've all said, because I would wholeheartedly agree with that. That said, to me, this is like the most loaded question for an analytical guy to sit down and say, broad statement, all students, all grades, entire school district, accolades, good things, bad things. We all have when I say good kids, we all have bad kids. We all have kids with broken homes. We have kids with non-broken homes. We have kids we just have such a variety and such a diverse backgrounds of all of our students. I mean, it was touched on earlier too about just the dedication of the parents. I'll give a shout out to the parents because that's where a lot of it starts, certainly. So I don't know. For me, this is the most loaded question. I guess I would just say, it's like every school. What I'd like to see is that kids who are leaving the Townsend School District are the most prepared for the work environment, whether that means college, or that means post-secondary, or that means no further education, or that means, heck, when I left school, I didn't know what types of insurance to buy, right? And I had a business class. But just those kinds of real world tangible things, like what's an interest rate on a loan mean to you when you leave this school? I know there's certain kids that grasp that, and there's certain kids that have no clue. I mean, I'll throw my wife under the bus. We had a 19% interest rate on a student loan. I mean, but all that to say is I think that's where the school can excel. And if that's our reputation, that students who leave the school or even move up to the next grade are the most prepared that they can be, the best, the best version of themselves that they can be. That's our goal. Again, for me, it's hard to say everything is one generalization because it's not.
Okay, another question from the floor. I believe it's Daniel's turn. Do you consider being a teacher and a board member a conflict of interest? Why or why not?
As in a teacher sitting on the board?
Yes.
Yeah, I would say it's a conflict of interest. It's kind of hard to be your own boss. I guess, the way I look at it in that standpoint. I mean, I know they want to be vested and they want to, teachers may want to have more participation, but I think there's other ways around it. And maybe I'm the off opinion here, but I see it could be a conflict. I see it could be something where there could be self-benefiting themselves in ways and maybe not looking at the whole picture. But yeah, I would say in that instance, it is a conflict.
Yeah, it's definitely a conflict of interest. The board negotiates a collective bargaining agreement with the teachers union. For one, it's against the law. For another, you can't be an employee of the district if you're serving on the board. So it's a conflict of interest.
I guess if it's against the law, that answers that question. I mean, taking that out of it, obviously we can't, but if you take it out of it, I do, however, feel like it's important for teachers to have a voice and again, I don't want to harken back to my background, but in nursing, we have nurses who then are in leadership because they are a conduit between what's the decisions that are being made and the boots that are in the field. And so certainly it could be a conflict of interest if you have somebody who has ulterior motives, but by and large, there has to be I think there would be value in having representation there. Now, how that all looks, it may take care of itself, I guess, depending on the decisions you're making. I personally don't see it as a conflict of interest. However, I am a law-abiding citizen, so.
I would agree with Daniel, roles and responsibilities. I feel like even with the strategic planning meeting I attended, the teachers were put in a weird spot to do a lot of the work that the board should have been doing. At the same time, I would agree with Andrea in that, ex officio, meaning non-voting members, people representing on behalf of the implementation and decisions that are going to be made, that's always very helpful. So I think there's potential for having that, again, non-voting member. We do that currently because they are subject matter experts in some of the advisory councils that I'm a part of. You're there to provide facts, you're there to provide information, but you're not the decision maker. At the same time, having that clear roles and responsibilities, I think, helps set teachers up for success. Again, just my limited experience was not the case. And I really want them to feel like they do have a voice and are empowered to come to the board with issues, but then respect the role that the board has in that decision-making process. You might not like it, you might not agree with it, but they are the decision makers. The body that sits here are the decision makers. And so that's the role. But I don't know, I think there's opportunity to have more feedback, particularly from, I call it the field level because that's what I'm used to, but it's the daily on the ground in the trenches, dealing with day-to-day information is always helpful in those decision-making processes.
It's a conflict, and I really don't have much to add.
Okay, this isn't mine, so I'm not really sure of these acronyms, okay? Do you support CRT, ESC, and BLM? Anybody know those?
I'll take a stab at some of them. Is it critical race theory?
Yeah, critical race theory would be the first.
This is somebody else, okay, so critical race theory, what's ESC?
Environmental social, or is that ESG score maybe? There's an environmental social justice
Not my
score.
question, so I'm not.
But I don't know. I'm not sure what ESC stands for.
Okay.
And then I assume BLM is.
BLM.
ESC, my name is Michael Stevens.
Okay.
It's environmental social governance.
Okay, yeah, ESG score.
And the connection between CRT, BLM, and SEL, which is social emotional learning. They're all tied together.
So Kevin, that's yours.
I don't know if I can really speak knowledgeably to that. I know a little bit about what critical race theory is and kind of how it originated and how this whole thought process originated out of that. I think there's a lot of concern in certain segments of our society about that. And in some areas of the country, they may be founded, but I really believe they're unfounded here to the extent of my knowledge. The same with the ESG component of that. And as far as how that ties into learning, we do have, we swim in the sea of government. There's the board, there's the Montana OPI here in the state, the governor's office, the Department of Education at the federal level. They all have influences that come down. And I think those social agendas need to be vetted out, and we need to understand where those things are coming from. In the past, Common Core was very misunderstood and was criticized broadly. I'm a pretty conservative guy, and it was really misinterpreted. It didn't come from the Fed, it came from the states. It came from a meeting with governors and their individual executives from their own education, similar to OPI in Montana. And they decided to make a more uniform educational program, mostly for military families who are traveling a lot and kids are missing chunks of their education. And given that, why would, and it was taken by certain people to be made into something it wasn't. And I think that's politics. Like I said, we swim in the sea of government whenever you're involved in something like that, and politics are involved. And it's important to understand those things and how they affect our community and what's going on in the classroom.
Strong work.
Yeah. Good job, Kevin.
To be honest, I mean, I don't know. I've heard of BLM. I've heard of critical race theory in title only, to be honest with you. And it's part of why I live where I live, in that I live in a small town environment, and there are things that are pertinent in other areas that are not pertinent to us. What I know, I can tell you that I would not be in favor, but I know very little. So I'm not going to speak and give you a dissertation on anything that I am completely unfamiliar with.
I've got about as much familiarity as Andrea does, name only. Beyond that, I mean, the legislature, Montana legislature, definitely sets the tone for a lot of the things that happen in the state, education being one of them. They do say that, if you pass a bill and don't like it, come back 2 years and you can change it. So and kind of looped into this too, I would incorporate some of the events that happen even here at school, and the newspaper, and all the things that got involved into that situation. I guess I don't necessarily support teaching that one life is better than another life. I come in from the standpoint that all lives matter. So I don't look at, again, race. I don't look at socioeconomic background. I don't look at broken home, non-broken home. I think, again, all lives matter to me. Not to withstand those efforts have their place, because there is a history in America, and we need to teach what history is, or we're going to relive it. At the same time, some things can go definitely too far, and I think that's again, without knowing a lot of it, that's what I would say, is that all lives matter. It doesn't matter what color they are or where you come from. Every life matters.
No, great comments, Jason. That's where I stand too. CRT, it's been a long time. I remember when it first came out, was first in the echo chambers. I listened to a podcast by Pastor John Piper, and he did a 2-part series on explain what it is. And yeah, I would never endorse something like that or stand behind something like that. So anyway, and the other stuff, to echo Andrea, I don't know enough about it. And I don't think that's, as a board member, I don't think that's where our focus needs to be. Our focus needs to be on the other areas that I mentioned earlier, so.
Daniel?
I can't sit up here and say I have an expansive knowledge on all this. He mentions that's not where the board needs to be, but I can expand on that. As far as I understand, our attorney general has already ruled on this, and CRT is unconstitutional in our state. So at this point in time, it's really a moot point for our school board.
Great, I don't have anything further. If there's questions from the floor, go ahead and feel free to ask them.
I have a question. So you guys have mentioned different things about how, all of the questions, or several of the questions about how the voice of teachers matters. And I would like to know, how do you plan to touch base with teachers to make sure that things are going good or bad, or how it is going, to understand as a board of direction you would need to go? How can you touch base with us?
I think it's Andrew's turn.
Well, for me personally, it would be connecting with teachers specifically, and then if there are possibilities and suggestions, understanding that we have limitations. We can only do what we can do. Obviously, there's legalities, there's things that are outside of our control. But if we don't have communication specifically with the teachers, specifically you, Mrs. Cameron, for instance, instead of saying, teachers think this, teachers think that. Well, but what do the teachers think? Like, all right, Dana Teffelmeyer, where are you at with this specifically? Or go into the high school and they're struggling with something specifically. It's got to get deeper than just a broad spectrum, the teachers. And if we're not willing to actually step out and speak to them individually and hear exactly, as board members, it can't be this chasm all the time between this is what we do and this is what you do, because we don't do what you do and you don't do what we do. But we have to know specifically, otherwise we can't address situations, and it becomes this blanket statement, and we will flock shoot an email to, well, they need this, and somebody's like, well, I don't need that, I need this, so you have to create an environment, but you also have to create opportunities for the teachers to be specific and to connect with them. I guess that would be my answer.
Jason.
Good question, Jamie. From my perspective, I would echo a lot of what Andrea had said, except for I'd add the caveat of including administration in that conversation. So I don't want to just circumvent the structure, the org structure that's in place now. At the same time, there needs to be a comfortableness of individuals working with the board at the same time. Like I said before, it's a respect of roles and responsibilities. So I guess, from my perspective, I don't know enough to say what the current board does. At the same time, I also know that I have heard from individual teachers who say, nobody knows what we do. Nobody knows what's going on. I'm trying to go through my administrator and I'm not getting anywhere. That's stuff that the board can help facilitate. And again, not with trying to go around administration, because I think they certainly need to be involved in that conversation, because they're the ones that are going to deal with it daily. We're not dealing with that daily, but at the same time, if there's not that voice, if there's not that opportunity to approach the board, or you're not getting through with individual administrators or whatever, that's where we come in to, I'd say, start with mediator, be that opportunity. But that's, again, my ignorance of what you have now is not enough to say how to change or add a whole bunch to it. But I just know that there's been that sentiment from individuals that I've talked to that they're just fed up. They're just frustrated. We try to provide information and it just goes nowhere. And I don't think that's a good situation. That's not good for morale for anybody. It's just.
Yeah, no, that's good. So 3 things, as a board member, if I were to show up here once a month, go to meetings and that was it, I'd be in the wrong. And that's what you wouldn't expect from me. So 3 things for this. And again, forgive the military analogy, we call it battlefield circulation. We always go out and we get into the trenches and we just check on the pulse of the soldiers, see how they're doing. I do the same thing here. It's all about building relationships. Walking through the schools, checking in on teachers. Hey, how are things going? Okay. Now, a lot of administration might be like, oh, micromanagement. No, that's not the whole intent. The whole intent is to build a relationship of trust. With that comes an open door policy that's respectable. So you can have an open, candid conversation with the teachers so you know what their issues are. And then just having the tact and wherewithal on how to use that information so you don't micromanage, so you don't disintegrate the chain of command within the school structure. So it's all about building trust, being involved, engaged. If you don't know what's going on in the trenches, how can you make the right decisions up here? Okay, and how can you have checks and balances on the administration to make sure that they are implementing your vision if you're not checking on the trenches to see what's going on? So that's how I operate. That's how I do it. That's all I have for that.
Okay, Daniel?
I've heard a lot of what Jason was talking about, reaching out to some of the teachers and just kind of, part of it was even before even filing, just talking like, yeah, we need to see something different because we're not being heard here. No one knows what's really going on. We've been told by every board member that's been elected that they want to hear what the teachers say and no one seems to ever show up. And I don't want to say that as a blanket because I'm sure there are some that have reached out, but I guess for one, I don't want to walk away from my position as a board member and be that board member and to have to hear that later down the road. I think there has to be some kind of avenue where we can provide a trust, provide an opportunity for teachers to be able to speak openly. I think there could be possibility of setting up some opportunities throughout the year and not just be at a board meeting, but just a faculty meeting of sitting and seeing what's going on and then offering ourselves up to opportunities to come into the classrooms if needed and kind of see where things are lacking. Obviously I can't speak to all the necessarily policies of how that goes, but I do know my boss is a city member on the school board in Helena, and I've already approached him once going, so what's the law that says that the school board's not allowed to talk to the teachers? Because it seems like I've heard a lot about that. He's already reassured me that no, there's no reason. He goes, you got to be careful about giving directions outside of a board meeting, but there's no reason to. And certainly that's a passion that I want to see. I want to see that bridge be built because I think that's necessary. Like everyone else has said, you can't always know what's going on unless you're down in the trenches listening. So I think it's got to be an active attempt to reach out.
Kevin?
I think in my experience, I think there's a lot of legitimacy to what you're saying. There's a chain of command, and a board member is not supposed to get involved in the classroom or at that level. The teacher, we're supposed to deal primarily with the superintendent and the board chair through them. That being said, the teachers in this community have come up to me and said what was on their mind. They've been very open, and that's fine. Sporting events or wherever around town at the store, I've had conversations at Bob's with teachers and, or wherever you meet. I think there is kind of I don't know, that's difficult. I don't know how to describe that. I think when we're especially dealing through COVID, we had to implement these recommended policies that came down through the School Boards Association. And that was kind of a train wreck. And we had to just keep reworking it, find out what was going on, what was the most practical solutions to those. And I thought we had a great communication through that. It was really kind of an unworkable situation that we worked through, and the teachers were stressed, and everybody was. It was a difficult time, And at the same time, we had gone through the design and development and program development of the elementary school, which is one of the best processes I've ever been through. I've been through that many times on many facilities, but our teachers came in and participated in that, and it was great. In fact, I kind of backed out of it because there were some things I had input in, but as far as classroom design, the breakout rooms, the commons room, and a lot of those things, they had the ideas and they knew how the school should be, and they were very active and participants in that, and it was a great process. I really enjoyed it. But yeah, that's probably an area I would say, as a board, maybe we need to work on. There has been, especially this past year, with some of the issues we've had, but there has been a lack of communication. We have open board meetings. Strategic planning meetings are open. They're open to the public. they were advertised. I mean, if the discussion can't take place if people don't show up. So there's that too.
Any further questions?
I do, go ahead. What do you believe that your role is as a school board member, or the school board role is, as far as your authority, your duty, your responsibility as a board? Who is your responsibility, your duty, and your role and authority towards? I'm talking, are you gonna be the voice to the teachers, to the students, or to parents, or to leadership? And what are you going to do? Are you gonna just sit around what seems like to me as a community member and just take no action on issues that are brought up to you, or sit on issues or suggestions for 8 months, 2 years, and not take action? What is your role as a next board member?
Hey, you could have shared with me.
I was wondering, did you get an insight on this one? As you're taking notes on what was.
Give me some.
I think it's Jason's turn.
Oh, I get the.
Yes.
Thank you. That's a good question. Well, you know, as a trustee in that role, you are providing the direction for the trust, i.e. the school as itself. And there's also certainly community involvement in that. This community has a huge stake in what happens with the students, but also what happens with the teachers. We are a small community. We all know each other. We see each other at Bob's. We go to school. We go to church. I mean, you're teaching my child. That's one of my most precious things in the world. So in my role, I guess I see as not neglecting issues that are brought up. So yeah, that can't happen. At the same time, looking out for the long-term future of the community. And one part of that certainly is the school and what happens here. You know, I think in my responsibility is to, I would say taxpayers, but in reality, it's the community itself. It is everybody that makes up the community, and certainly there are those that are involved with it daily, day to day, every day, and there are certainly ones that look on from afar. At the same time, you know, just like the community survey that's going on right now, it's not just for parents, it's for the entire community. So I guess that's, you know, without having Chase's prepared answer, I guess my role is just to again, what's in the best interest of the trust, and that trust is not physically trust between each other, but the trust as collective.
Thank you, Mrs. Reagan.
You may be sleeping on the couch tonight.
Let me know how
Gets
I
in the
do.
house.
Yeah, I'll take a different angle. I think ultimately our role is we're charged with accountability to ensure this community's vision is carried out. It's not just the boards. We represent the community. We are like the last interface for the community to ensure accountability is occurring, so our kids and teachers are safe and they're all getting an awesome education here. I'm going to segue into something that I just want to make sure I get out there too, because this is something that's important to me too. So we got a couple teachers that are retiring this year, and they don't have to. But what's interesting about these teachers is the students adore and love these teachers. And so my question is, if I was a board member, to say, has anyone reached out and found out why these teachers are retiring when they don't have to? What is the cause? Because there might be something that we can fix to retain quality teachers. Because again, this is part of where I think we have much improvement to make. Because recruiting is only half, retention is the other half, and you got to get both right in order to provide a first-class education and a safe environment to our kids and teachers. So.
I think our role is ultimately as a board is successful graduates. And I guess where I'm going with that is, and to become successful, they need to have a functioning school that works well, being, fiscally responsible, making sure that we're staying within our means, but providing the support to the teachers where we need to, so these kids can succeed. And then ultimately, this is Townsend schools, this is Broadwater High School. It is a community function, and we do need to look at the community and see what their needs are. And if that's to, not ignore something that's been going on for a couple of years and hear the concerns that maybe it does change the success. Maybe it does provide a better opportunity. Maybe it does nothing. But to at least sit there and listen and hear all that. But I think ultimately, as a board member, the role is to make sure these kids succeed. And when they leave here, that we've done everything to provide them the best opportunity.
I think the role of a board member, by definition, is really providing a 5-year outlook to that type of visioning. And Chase touched on the interface between our community and our administration. Definitely, that's a big part of it. But there's also a lot of problem solving and things on every level that take place, whether, if it's, we have some board members have really strong attributes in language and contracts, and they provide information on that, or wherever those individual board members' strengths are, they participate and contribute in that way. And I think on the subject of authority, actually a board member doesn't really have you got zero authority, actually. I can't go into the school and tell the superintendent what to do or anybody else. But a board vote, if there's a motion and a board vote, that is the authority. There's 5 members on the board and majority vote. That's really the only authority that you have. And I think, what was the other part?
What do you see your role is as a board member?
The
What
role.
authority do you have and responsibility?
Just to participate and contribute and do the best you can. Thank you.
Well, I see it as, this is an elected position, and as such, you have to represent the people that elect you. Bottom line is it isn't I can come up here and say, these are my thoughts and these are my agenda, but that's not why I'm here. Because if I'm here, certainly people can vote for you because you feel that who you are as a person most closely aligns with who they are as a person. But ultimately, we're here to serve the public, and the public encompasses everybody. It encompasses the students, it encompasses the parents, it encompasses the teachers, it encompasses the administrators. And, I might have an opinion about something, but if that opinion is not what aligns with the community, then it doesn't mean that I'm going to shove my agenda, say, well, that's my opinion and I'm elected. And once I got up here, I got to decide what I decided. So I feel that my role is to listen and understand, ultimately doing what the constituents would like me to do, even if that's not always what I agree with personally, but if that's what's going to produce a better school or a better system, then, I have to be willing to listen and abide by that.
Jeannie Steele, I'm just curious of what all you think it entails to be on the board. How many hours you think that will come from your life? This is a volunteer position. Many times tonight, people have mentioned the board and the board's agenda. The board sets many days and many meetings in front of empty chairs. They may not have an agenda, but no one necessarily comes to give input or help them speak. So my question is, how many hours do you think that this is going to take from your life, and are you prepared for that? And how are you going to fill these seats so that you don't become the bad board members who didn't listen?
That's yours, Chase.
Boy, I'm glad you got this.
You're next.
Is it okay to bribe people to come? No, Jeannie, those are two great questions. You know, I guess I'll answer the latter part first. It's all about relationships. Again, like Andrea stated, if we're up here pushing our own personal agenda, we're in the wrong. And the only way to be the voice of the community you represent, you have to get to know the community, and you have to have avenues available so you're accessible, whatnot. As far as, and that's what I mentioned that earlier, that's I'm a relationship guy. So the second part is how much time. Boy, that's the $1 million question. I'd probably refer that to Jason or Kevin or some of these other board members to see, because, but like anything, it's just like this master's program I'm finishing out. My wife can attest, I'm up till midnight studying and whatnot. That'll be done in July. So come July, I'll have a lot more time to fill that void of late evenings after the kids get tucked in. So I'm coming into it fully aware, and I'm not going to be a lone ranger. I'm going to surround myself with good people to help me, because I think if I were to try and do this alone, I would fall on my face really fast. So again, appreciate that question, Jeannie.
I think it's got to start with, that we talked about spreading the word, and I think we need to get one person in here. And you get that one person into this meeting, and you start listening to them, and they can walk out of here, and then they can tell their friend, hey, I went to the meeting, and actually they listened to what our concerns were. And I think if we can start creating that relationship with the community, I think we can start filling these chairs. The amount of time, well, this is going to be a political answer, but it's not really intended to be. I see needing to spend the amount of time that it takes to make sure you're educated on whatever topic needs to be happening. Now, if that means outside of here researching information, I think that's what's necessary to be a good board member. And I feel like as a board member, that's what you need to be committed to, is enough to where you can have a knowledgeable decision on items that are on the board, and not come in here and just be a stump and not care or not have any clue what's going on, and not be able to sit up here and go, well, I'm not sure what CRT is. Like all of us did. But
Kevin?
I think Daniel nailed it there. You really, when you first come on the board, you don't realize how much you don't know. And there's a lot of training you go through, and there's an essentials package. It's 26 pages. And that's really just a brief summary of what the role of the board is. And then you get into more training into specific aspects of negotiations, facilities management. There's all types of different things, trainings that are available for that. And it's important to do that. You will put a lot of time into that. I think it also depends on the individual style. Some people are much more hands-on and much more at the school and engaged in those things. And it depends on, I guess, there's a level of appropriateness there too, as you fit into your role as a school board member. To be, as I said earlier, we don't really have the authority to go in and start telling people what to do. That's an inappropriate way to conduct yourself as a board member. You need to act through the board, act through the superintendent. And the research, and Daniel's right, the education and research, a lot of that you do on your own. And Jason can tell you, you spend a lot of time on Google looking up stuff, finding that, following the thread and trying to find out as much as you can about something. And so you can make an informed decision. But there's also an individual thing as well.
As far as, I guess, you talk about getting people here or engaging and not being that board member, I think there's a certain amount of liking, of wanting to engage, but you can't make people engage and you can't force them to be engaged. And if you aren't given, if the community is not coming in and talking to you, you can only facilitate so much. I have to admit, I have not been to many board meetings. I have personally felt in the last, however many, I guess my kids have been in here 8 years, that they by and large have done a great job. Have I agreed with everything? No. Do I agree ever with anything? I mean, no. So, community engagement is only as important as it is to the community. And beyond that, you're left to make those decisions. And if you are that person, then you better not be up here if you aren't willing to be that person. I always tell my kids, I like to be liked, but I don't need to be liked. You want to be liked, but you don't have to be liked, because sometimes you're gonna have to make decisions that not everybody's gonna agree with. And that's okay. And if you can't do it, then maybe, you wouldn't be up here. So as far as getting the community engagement, I don't know what the answer is to that. People have to want to come. They have to want to engage. And yes, in part, that is, they feel like if they do come, they will be heard and whatnot. But that being heard doesn't necessarily mean that I will align with what you just said, because I can't always. We can't. I mean, legality sometimes preclude that. So, and as far as the time, I am certain that it will be a lot for me specifically, because I am not well versed in all of the ins and outs of what it takes to be on the school board. And I will be completely honest about that. That's going to take some time investment on my part. With specific, I think, I don't know, maybe it was you. I can't remember which one of you said it, but it is, when you have a situation that's coming up, do your research. It's going to take that. I mean, we tell kids all that they get as much out of it as they put into it. If I want to be up here a bump on a log, then I won't do the research, but that's not why I'm here. I would like to be an active part. So if there's an issue coming up, then I'm going to have to do the research and put the time in.
Jason?
I first got to give credit to the current board members. I know it seems like we've kind of all thrown them all under the bus a lot tonight, but I don't feel that in any way. I just want to make sure that they do get kudos for that. Secondly, in terms of the amount of time it takes, I think it's a little bit situational dependent. I mean, we're all relatively new. It's going to take us a lot more time on the upfront side to get to a place where we're at a common understanding. That said, there's also sometimes issues come up and it takes a lot more time, or you're doing long range planning, like a new school, that's going to take a lot more time, or even policies. It just kind of situational dependent. That said, some of my frustration as just a community member has been a lack of notice. So what's on the agenda? What are the associated documents that go with the agenda? Having that more than 24 hours or 48 hours in advance. In the world I live in, you're at least 2 weeks to a month out with everything. So the public has time to review the agenda, determine what's the associated documents that go with it, and then decide if I want to come and make an opinion or not. But if I don't see what the agenda is until 2 days, 3 days before the meeting, or even know that there is a meeting, I mean, I haven't seen it yet, but I don't know if there's like every for the entire next school year, here's every day we're having a school board meeting, and then we'll throw special ones in. But then, like I said, even trying to find the video from this week's school board meeting took me 3, 4, 5 minutes, 10 clicks, YouTube searches, and then I kept getting interrupted by the stupid ads through the meeting. And so just trying to figure out, again, getting all the associated documents, getting everything that goes in a packet for the trustees up in front of the community at least a week, 2 weeks before the next meeting would be really helpful, just as a community member, to be able to easily find that and then easily research it. Like I said, the budget was another one. Just trying to, again, where's money going? Where are we planning it to go? And trying to find it, and then let alone have the time to research it. That's just been my perspective.
Okay, Susie?
Thank you. I would like to know, as a current superintendent, I do my work by and execute the board's vision through the policies that have been adopted. And you guys make those votes and sign off on those policies, and then that is how we, base the guidance and run the business of the school. So can you tell me what you know about our current policy makeup and situation? Also, what you know about our current budget, and which committee you would like to serve on. Because depending on which committee you select, it is 5 to 15 hours a week, can vary. And also, we do post the agendas we have to follow the open meeting laws, and our meeting's at second Tuesday of every month, and I would love to see all of you here from now on. That would be fantastic.
Okay, Daniel, you're first.
So I'll be completely honest with you. I don't know a lot of the policies. I don't know a lot of the budget. But that's why I'm here. And I was telling people that from the get-go is I want a better understanding. I want to be in there so I can see how these policies are developed and the budget's being developed and have a better understanding and then help develop them. I won't sit up here and lie and buffalo you guys and say that I know everything there is. I don't, but that's why I want to be here, is I want to learn. I want to know better. I want to be a better educated community member about this so then I can reach out and hopefully help explain it to other people that are also not in the know about it. So, yeah, that's my truthful answer.
Did you have a committee you wanted to be on?
Guess I'd have to know what committees there are.
Okay. Kevin?
Well, you asked a lot of questions. I think our policies, we just went through a year-long review. Unfortunately, when Mrs. Headland took over, our policies were no longer searchable within the format, this PDF format that they were in. They were kind of a mess. We had things that had been changed, and she put it upon us, and we took it upon ourselves to review the whole thing. So it was a matter of time. We either had the choice to review this as a community, as a board, or we could adopt the Montana School Board's recommended version of that. And we chose the hard way and kept that specific to our school, which I think is a great choice. And it took a lot of time. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to participate in all those meetings, but as far as those are all posted now, and you can search policies on the web, which is great for our community. It's very open, transparent. As far as committee, whatever you want me to do, facilities, we've talked about that. Is there any other question?
The state of our budget.
State of our budget. We're actually on track right now. We're on track towards the end of the year. So currently on track.
Well, now I know the state of your budget. So, I guess as far as policies, no, I don't know a lot of the policies. And I don't know that anybody's going to know all of them unless you're the type of person that can read through and have an eidetic memory. You're probably not going to know that. At the hospital, we are able to look up a policy. So it's not really about knowing the policy, it's knowing where to find the policy when you need the policy. Certainly I would spend time learning what some of the important and basic ones are, but I need to know what I need to know most is where do I find it when I need it, as opposed to trying to figure it all out. And as far as committees, I'm good with everything except for transportation, because I don't need to take my work home with me.
Thank you for that, Dizzy. So I guess from my perspective, the policies, you guys have done a huge work to get them where they're at. I started to read through them, got through page 150, 200 and gave up. Honestly, 800 pages is a lot for me to consume, but as Andrea said, with all of Montana code and other ARM and other things we deal with, it's how do you look it up? How do you know how to find it? Do you know what the answer is? That kind of stuff. Budget wise, I didn't know that that's where you're at, but I did know that there was a couple bills that just passed the House and just passed the legislature. One for the base funding and the A&B funding, but then also one for a significant increase if we apply for it. For those that have had that enrollment increase over the last 3 years, it's an additional amount of money we can get to bring in through House Bill 36. That said, committee-wise, I'm happy to to sit on anything. I've been working with one of the current board members on a library item concern I have, so I'll be filling out the form. I have the filled out, I just haven't brought it in yet. So that'd be one thing I could help work on too. But again, without having a good basis of where the need is, one of the things I noticed on the list, even for current committees, is maybe we need to adapt, change, or modify based off of certain current today's issues. There's
Yeah, to answer Susie's question to echo Daniel and Henry, I don't know the policies, but I think there's a lot of value of having a fresh set of eyes, take a look at some policies. Very familiar with regulation, and I love getting in the gray area of regulation in order to meet intent and meet vision. I think that's important, outside the box creativity. I assume that there is a budget committee. Is that true? Where the money's going and what we can do to get creative to take care of our teachers, of our kids. Thanks.
Go ahead. Well, that was a long question, and I tried to follow that with an equally short question. It's April 13th. You know what happens this weekend?
taxes.
Bunch of us are writing big checks, right? My question is real simple. It's a binary question. Will you, as a professional board member, commit to stop raising our property taxes unilaterally and put every tax increase to a public vote?
Is it to me? Well, I can't commit to that.
Okay,
We just,
don't need a reason, just a yes or no works.
well, I think the reason is the answer, really. We have permissive levies. We just passed a resolution, which we do every year, to allow us these permissive levies. They're in certain areas. They don't encompass the entire budget. Those are not voted on by the public. Those are permissive levies by the board. They're very limited in their amount, and we very rarely use those. And only it's absolutely necessary would we use those.
Well, I'm going to have to say that I can't say that I would never do something because I don't know enough about the situation to say that I would never. And so.
Yeah, I can't commit one way or another other than to say, if you look at the tax assessments currently on a lot of the real estate in our county, they're woefully underassessed. Not that I don't want anybody to pay more taxes, but that's one just fact of life. If you look at everything selling for 400 to $1 million plus, and the tax assessments, they're 30,000, 40,000, 80,000. Granted, there's different classes, and there should be. Some ag should be ag. It should be taxed that way. At the same time, if you've got $3 million property and you're paying very small portion of it, I don't think that's gonna catch up to that new owner at some point when the assessors comes around, and it's gonna change that dynamic. So I guess I sit here and say I don't want to raise taxes on anybody because I don't want to pay any more, nor should anybody else have to pay more. At the same time, I can't guarantee that that's the direction we'll have to go based off just future growth in the county.
Yeah, same. I don't think it'd be fair to put our community in a corner. And again, just to echo, that's very dangerous in its own sense. But I will say that as a business owner, as someone who's, like all of you, have worked very hard for what they have, and the fact that my property taxes went up 35%, that stings. I can tell you I'm going to do everything within my power not for that to happen. But again, I'm not going to put myself or the community in a corner as a representative of the community to say that in no certain terms I will never do that. But I can tell you I'm going to do my best not to.
Yeah, pretty similar. I think it's important for the board to be very fiscally responsible and do what we can, the best we can with the money we have. But at the same time, I don't think it would be fair to any of you for us to sit up here and say, yeah, we're never going to do that. We don't know what the future looks like. We don't know what the budgets look like. There's a lot of unknown for us to just sit here and say absolutely not. There's not a lot of absolutes in life, and I don't think that's one we can make.
Anybody else?
I hope there'd be a cap at some point based off of income in the area. But if you could pretend you're speaking to the current board or you guys are collaborating amongst yourselves right now. Right now, the survey that was sent out, I think you have maybe roughly somewhere around 8 days to fill out the survey. How would you, okay, there's no way for me as a community member. I went to a strategic planning meeting where I saw teachers completely vested and invested in a 4-day plan. And we were supposed to see a model of different learning styles, researched and submitted. That was not done. It was kind of like one thing. And our lives are about to be changed very drastically. And how would you guarantee or how would you suggest to your board members that we would even have a guarantee as community members that those survey results are even counted fairly? Because if we handle ballot initiatives, counting ballot initiatives the way the current situation is being measured, it's kind of dismal. Are you comfortable with the way that's being handled? What would you say to change that? And do you think that that's providing morale for the members of the community? Thank you.
Okay. I personally think that it is pretty, there are a lot of teachers vested. You're right, there are a lot of teachers vested. I have spoken with many of them, and yet I still have not seen a concrete plan of how this would roll out. And I feel like, to be honest with you, it's okay to have to assess an interest level before we invest a whole bunch of time actually seeing what the meat on the bones looks like. Because realistically, if the community is completely against it and it just won't do it, you don't always get all the facts in your life before you get to make a decision. Sometimes you make a decision. It's like somebody who says, well, I'll wait until I'm ready to have a child. Well, you're never going to be ready. You sometimes have to gauge that. And I feel like 8 days is plenty of time for people to, if they are invested in this as an issue, then they already know they have spent some time looking into it, or they should have. And 8 days was plenty of time for me to fill out the survey. Now, did I know everything about the survey? I answered it honestly. There's still a lot of things that I would need to know to sign off and say I'm absolutely in support. And I gave comments in the spots where the comments were offered. And so I think it's, to be honest with you, I'm not sure totally what you're asking as far as you think that the board should have had a specific plan before they sent it out to the community. And then,
let me help you, Andrea. Let me just kind of narrow it in so you guys can save time and stress. How do you think you could guarantee when surveys like this are taken from the public that there's any accountability, that the surveys are going to be counted ethically? And do you think there is accountability right now? And how would you suggest that accountability be made for huge decisions like this that are being rushed through?
so I think anytime you say guarantee, there's just there's no way. There's no way. And I guess I feel a little bit like your question is coming out of a distrust from the board. If you're saying that, how can we ensure that they will be counted? It would be saying the assumption is that it's not going to be, and I don't share that assumption. I feel like the board members are going to take that. So I don't know how I would do it differently than what they are offering right now. I don't have that mistrust.
I had similar thoughts, Yvonne. Just a real quick flash moment. But one of the advantages that they did utilize is the MTA Montana School Board Association rather than us doing it ourselves. So I think there's another layer there of accountability that holds to them. One of the things I could suggest to this current board is to publish the raw data, not just the results, but then also the community response. Here's the 400, 500 pages of people that filled out the raw data. So if you don't believe what the results say, you have the opportunity then as a citizen to go back through and look through that raw data and make your own conclusions. That said, I would agree with you in that the rollout was very, very, very untimely, meaning we are up against the school calendar deadline. I wish we had our school calendar from last year or for next year published in December, right? I think that's the kind of level of planning, because I'm making vacations next August and I still don't know what the heck's going to happen. That said, I think there's opportunity with this specific issue. There wasn't good communication on pros and cons, suggested alternatives. If the school decides to go to a 4-day, here's how it's going to look. Here's the timetable. Here's the daycare options. Here's the suggested information. Here's an FAQs on what this looks like for the community to make a vested and informed decision. Right now, I was very limited in the involvement from the very tail end here, but I feel like there's a whole information gap missing on why is this survey being issued? Why did I get a phone call from the lunch balance negative line that says now you take this survey? Well, I get the point of getting people to take it. At the same time, they don't even understand why or what's going on or how it's getting there. And so all of that should have been done again 6 months ago, 8 months ago, a year ago. We're not there, unfortunately. So we just deal with what we have. And so I do give them kudos for getting the word out. I think the word has been spread, but I think the community right now is, what does this mean and how do I handle it and what do I do and what are my options? And we don't have any of those answers. So I am a firm believer of the 6 Ps, and we can talk about what that is later, but yeah, we got to get further in advance in our planning and rollout of things. Otherwise it just creates anxiety.
Yeah, no, good question. So I've had some consternation on the survey. And first question, when you ask someone their name, it brings into question if you're going to get accurate results right out the gate. And all the surveys that we do when we're going across the formation, it's all anonymous, because as a commander, I want ground truth. I want people not afraid of retribution, retaliation, because it's real and it happens. And it's the reality of living in a fallen world. So that's first and foremost. And so as a board member, I would have put a halt to that right away and say, hey, we got to do this better. We got to get more information out. It seemed like we're rushing to failure a little bit because it was spurred on from that strategic meeting. Well, there's a lot of people in the community that don't really understand what all happened, transpired. So I think there needs to be multiple platforms to get the message out. Hey, here's your warno. The survey is coming out, and this is what it means. And unfortunately, people have busy lives, right? It takes time, something this strategic, something this critical that's going to affect people's lives. We have to take our time. We can't rush to failure on something like this. We really can't. So it's better to pump the brakes, be patient, take more time. If it takes another year, so be it, but let's do it right the first time. So, and to echo Jason, how you mitigate the trust is make sure a third party administers a survey, okay? If it's not something sensitive or you're doing something for your own, you can use SurveyMonkey and whatnot, but you use a third party, then that takes away a lot of that possible mistrust. So I hope that answers your question.
Yeah.
I think, part of this is kind of hearing what Chase had to say a little bit, the accountability on inaccuracies. I think in a way they had to have our name on there or some kind of individual identifier, or else how do you know that I don't go in there 3 times and go 3 different times? Do I think that name should be public? Do I think it needs to go back to the school board? No, but I think it's got to be a way to check it to make sure that there's not multiple votes on it. You weren't the only one frustrated that there wasn't more information on that survey. I can tell you that, and I heard that a lot. One thought I had is I would say most of the people in here know what a 4-day school week means in a general sense. But there's probably a lot of community members that are getting this request to fill out a survey that don't understand what that means. And I feel like there was an opportunity there missed to kind of give a little bit better education. I think the other concern is there's a lot of concerns that with the 4-day school week, kids will be going to school 2 extra hours a day potentially, or You know, we don't have any childcare on Fridays, that kind of stuff. But there's some answers and there's some studies out there that prove that, you know, that it doesn't necessarily mean 2 hours a day extra. It doesn't necessarily mean that there's not any kind of childcare. I'm not saying there is, and I know the board probably was standing at a point where they didn't want to put much out there to say that they could commit to some of that. But I think there was some answers that needed to be had, or some information provided so people could actually have an educated opinion on what it was. The way it was sent out seemed rather vague. I think, again, just to follow what you guys are saying on the accountability is having some kind of identifier. I mean, I got to show an ID to vote. Having some kind of identifier that indicates that you voted once and that's the case. Having a third party, I think that's also a great way to do it. Beyond that, not sure.
Kevin?
Yeah, as far as the veracity of the survey, MTSBA is going to compile all the data. The names won't come back to the district that were associated with each one. The names are in place, exactly what Daniel said, as a identification to make sure those people are in the community and parents are within the school district. The teachers who were speaking to that did even as well as far as what do you do on Fridays or what's the schedule going to look like. So yeah, I understand where you would feel unsettled because you don't know what's going to happen. Yeah, I'm not in favor of rushing to anything on this. If we do it, it's got to be done right. And there are actually guidelines out there to do this. There's one other thing I want to say. I'll come back. Thanks.
Okay. One more quick question and then we'll adjourn.
Go ahead, Jason.
Can you answer that since you're?
Yeah, it's on the school website. It's been in the newspapers and other, no hard copy. Yeah. There's no hard copy of the survey.
I got one question. And this isn't necessarily a question to state your intelligence, but you know that you're saying the school, but you know, these state or government programs, our taxes all have to we all have to pay them eventually, you know, whether it's a state or
Oh, okay.
understand basic, you know, basic fundamentals of how America works here. You know.
Second,
When are they
so
going to
you
be
can take
mailed?
them to the courthouse and drop them off, but everybody, please be advised to check your mailbox. Do not throw away your ballots.
Call the courthouse, we don't have a ballot.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you for your time.